John Jackson.
Jordan Moore, John Jackson, and as promised, the head coach Clay Helton sits down with us now. Brought to you by Ralph's. Trojan fans get one free admission to the Ralph's Ultimate Tailgate Experience at select USC football home games this fall when you purchase $35 of participating items at Ralph's. Look for the signs and tags in store. Every $35 you spend gets you one admission. All right, the coach sits down with us now, and you had a little bit of a test to start things off, but now that the test is over and you survived it, do you feel good about being tested as opposed to, a laugher, which a lot of teams sort of schedule in that first week?
No, it was a great test for us, an ultra-competitive game against a team that had won 13 games the year before and came in with a confidence and a poise about themselves and a really good running game. And we knew that coming in, that they could run the ball, that they had a good defense and played good special teams, had a dynamic kick returner, and that was my fear coming in. But I love how our team showed the poise that they did down the stretch, never seemed to be flustered, just kept doing their job, improving as the game went on. And then typical of kind of who we were in the second half of the season last year, really took over the fourth quarter and won it 28-10 in the fourth.
And that's what I was going to ask you to expand upon, is that you're right. The game wasn't going like, 60 or 70,000 people thought it was going to go. And then now you find yourself in a dogfight in the second half with your team. And I know that this is always something that changes from team to team, but your team's temperament and attitude, you touched on it a little bit, but can you expand on what you saw or maybe some examples?
Yeah, I think it starts with the quarterback. Just the calmness and poise that he had all the way through the game, having a bunch of young players out there, really doing what we asked him to do, not focusing on one guy, but to spread the ball around. You look up, he's thrown it to 10 different receivers, throws for 289 yards, 70% completion ratio, and never got flustered. Even though it wasn't a perfect outing and things weren't perfect for him, he just kept a poise about him, kept everybody on the sideline confident and upbeat. And, that's who he is, and it just kind of fell all the way through our team. It was just like, okay, hey, let's go do our job and let's go finish this game out. And that's what we did both offensively and defensively down the stretch.
You have a lot of true freshmen and redshirt freshmen on this roster. What was your balance as you looked at it and as the game went on of trying to get some guys' feet wet, knowing you're going to need them as the year goes on, and also, hey, we got a game to win right now, 7 minutes to go, and we're tied?
Yeah, it's a fine line to be able to say, what we have to be able to go through some growing pains to be able to be a better team as this season goes on. But it was great to see some even young people step up. You see a Stephen Carr step up in the fourth quarter. Pai comes up with 2 huge runs, physical runs for us. So it was good to see some young people. And then what really just stood home to me at the end of the day was our offensive line, and challenged them at halftime, challenged them in the third quarter to take over the line of scrimmage and take the game over. And that's what they did. They scored in 4 of the last 5 drives of that game, and it was all in run fashion. And that's what you want from a group that's really an older group.
Right, and they are experienced, as you mentioned, but they all were playing together for the first time in several positions. Were you surprised to see how well the continuity was? Because it didn't look like a lot of blown assignments. Didn't look like a lot of guys not knowing what's in front of them.
Yeah, and you expect it from it. I mean, you think of how many games Vianney and Toa and Nico have played, and Chuma's started in ball games. Chris Brown has started in ball games. So I expected them. That was the worry coming in. And just as a coach, I guess I see being around them every day. Like it was very, really, really confident in those individuals, and I know it was their first time playing together, but they had so much experience, so much confidence coming into the game, and then they showed it.
We're taking a fan question here from Facebook Live from Stan Escalante, who wants to know about the chemistry. How do you feel like Sam is he getting in sync with his young receivers? What did you see on Saturday, and what do you need to continue to see?
Yeah, we talked about we would go through some growing pains, with the young wideout core, and if 70% completion ratio and 289 yards is our worst day, then I'll take it. I really feel like that's nowhere near a finished product. That I hope as the season goes on that we're playing our best ball at the position quicker than November. But I think it's going to take a little time. It takes a little time to get adjusted to new kids.
Now, defensively, I know Western Michigan was good, and they had several good players. But were you, or is there a level of concern of how the defense played? Not necessarily how they played effort-wise, but just that it wasn't as crisp and tight, with the tackling and things like that it usually is for a USC football team.
Yeah, I think they understood that our defense understood by today's practice. I mean, it was an upbeat, very competitive practice. I mean, frankly, they were mad.
Okay.
A lot of pride on that side of the ball.
Yeah, they got their jaws set, and they're an older bunch, and they came out today ready for war, and that's good to see as a coach, and because they don't expect to be in that position where they're getting run on, and I know that they'll get it fixed. I've got the best defensive coordinator in the country, in my opinion, and I've got guys that are back off that defense from last year that have won a lot of football games. They know how to win, and they will.
Well, that run defense will certainly be tested by Stanford this Saturday. We'll talk about that next. Reminder, you can still get tickets to the game, usctrojans.com/tickets. Coach's scouting report next on Trojans Live.
Here are Jordan Moore and John Jackson.
Jordan Moore, John Jackson, and the head coach Clay Helton on Trojans Live, brought to you by Chevy. Get behind the wheel today at your Southern California Chevy dealer and see for yourself why Chevrolet keeps bringing home award after award. Learn more at SoCalChevy.com. Well, Coach, we started this show with the amazing Jake Olson, who really became the much bigger story than that game did on Saturday. I'm sure you've been asked a million questions about him. What has he taught you, though? I mean, you have been around him close in the same locker room now with two plus years. What have you learned from Jake?
He's a definition of fight on. There are no excuses. Just it's about doing your job and executing. And he's the definition of just he's never used his limited sight as an excuse to not perform for his brothers and perform for his football family, and to go out there in that situation, in that experience, and
clutch.
to be dead on the money.
Yeah.
I mean, you got the one time in that game to get it done, and with the whole world watching, and you just execute to perfection. I don't know if there was one man or woman in that stadium that didn't have goosebumps, and I know my eyes were misty. So it was a really special moment for our football family. I'm so proud for a young man that really is a master of his craft.
It is a great moment, and I mean, there's a lot of people to thank, but you're at the forefront to thank because you have to have the forethought to go across to the other teams and make this arrangement sort of happen. Is it possible it happens again? Is there a scenario? And here's what I was getting. Do you come across as arrogant going to the other team and saying, "Hey, look, if there's opportunity to make this happen," how does that conversation go with the other team?
When I approached it this summer and had visited with our doctors and our administration, this is something that we wanted together as a football family. So I have no pride or ego when it comes to trying to do something for one of my kids,
right.
and so I didn't really care what anybody else thought. Just I wanted that opportunity for that young man, and credit to Western Michigan, Tim Lester, and that whole football family for allowing us to do that. We were able to accomplish something special, and I'm so glad it happened. It's something that I want to happen again, and we'll continue to work on to try to provide him more opportunities to play the game he loves and to operate. And if it is what it is,
yeah.
I'm going to try my best to make that happen for that kid.
Well, here we go, Coach. It's Stanford week. You've been here since 2010, and that week has been a grind every single time in 2010. Even the couple wins were a grind and came down to the very end. One game to look at Stanford against Rice, but Stanford looked like Stanford to you?
Yeah, they're the same bunch each and every year. Very well coached, disciplined. Very physical football team under Coach Shaw. I think he's done a tremendous job year in, year out of producing a team that is a quality bunch. I mean, everybody says they have an off year, and they won 10 games last year too, just like us. But they are a team that comes in with a lot of confidence, a lot of experience on defense. That middle of that defense, it seems every year is so strong, and there's Harrison Phillips sitting right there at the nose position again. And offensively, you finally say, "Oh gosh, Christian's finally gone," and you look up and there's Love and Scarlett, and they're running all over the field. And credit I'm so glad that Keller Christ is back and healthy and playing. He's such a great kid, and had the opportunity to recruit him out of high school and get to know him and his family. and it's good to see him back and executing where he left off. He's a good quarterback.
You know, I know that back a couple of years ago, you wanted SC to be more Stanford-like in this way. Physical at the point of attack and and dominate, which was shown in Western Michigan. First week it shows up in terms of how physical the Trojans played up front. Is that gap closing in your opinion?
Yeah, I hope it is. We'll see. I think that until you compete against another team that you try to emulate their style, especially in the run game. You know, we have our own passing style. We're a little bit more balanced, I think, for run to pass. Right. But that's our style, is to be balanced because of the playmakers and the quarterback that we have. But we have to be able to stop the run and run the ball and to be balanced. Our goal is always 200 yards plus rushing a game. And if we feel like we can hit that benchmark, then it's going to give us opportunities for Sam and the wideouts to make big plays in the passing game. So we're a little bit different system-wise, but I love where we have progressed to in the offensive line, especially over the last 2 years. You look at us, and we were a 200-yard rushing club last year, and we started out right where we left off with 232 yards last week, and that's kind of our benchmark. That's where we set ourselves.
This Stanford program just seems to roll in tight ends. I mean, they bring another one in every year. What makes it so difficult to defend that particular position?
Well, you see the size of them not only as run blockers, which are dynamic but also they're so dynamic in the passing game, and they create mismatches. You look at even at the Rice game, and they've got one tight end. They got Colby Parkinson out at wide receiver and matched up on a smaller corner and just throw two fades to him, and he goes up and make plays. So they've really David does a really nice job of identifying matchups in his game plan and trying to get those big bodies on some of your smaller defenders, especially in the pass game. You
know, a lot of people sort of analyze this game, and is it better to catch Stanford early, late? Does it matter? I mean, a lot of it will say, hey, it's week 2. I mean,
we don't get a vote. It's always week 2 or 3.
Always week 2.
I know. Yeah, so we've never felt them later in the year because of our rivalry with Notre Dame. But us and Stanford play Notre Dame, and so the agreement is that we play Stanford early. So we both have the opportunity to play Notre Dame late. So that's why it's always within the first 3 games. We always play early. It makes for a fast start to come out the gate. Yeah. And it's one of my favorite games, I'll be honest with you. I so much look forward to this game each and every year because it's going to be at the most highest competitive level imaginable. And I think about the times of playing Andrew Luck and losing the game on a field goal or overtime, and then coming back and watching 50,000 fans as we kick a field goal, rush the stadium. So it's one of those special games that I think is great for college football. It's great for our conference, and I'm glad it happens. I really do. I think the stronger the teams are in our conference, like Stanford, and having a chance to play them each and every year, man, that's something special.
Great opportunity for the home crowd to impact the game, too, like it did in 2013.
I got to thank them for last week. They got us 2 critical penalties there in the fourth quarter. So all the Trojan family, please come out and help us.
I remember that 2013 game. It started, I think Stanford had 3 false starts in the first drive of the game, set the tone for the whole game. So hopefully the Coliseum will be rocking me a little cooler. That'll help, certainly, and hopefully lots to cheer about. So thank you, Coach. We will talk to you, of course, next week after that one. We're looking forward to Saturday. That's Coach Helton on Trojans Live. Back to wrap things up with JJ next on ESPN LA 710.